Call to order this special called meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, March 13th, 2023. Roll call.
Carroll.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Blair.
Here. Thank you. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to make sure that everyone knows, directors also, that this is a special called meeting. So therefore, the discussion will be for directors only. There is no public input time. So I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for coming to listen to this discussion. So with that, I would like to, I know that the agenda item is the appointment of screening committee, city administrator applicants. I just wanted to let you all know that I did get some information from the previous hiring of the administrator, just to give you an idea about how that was handled the last time. Of course, this is totally your decision to make, but I just thought you might want to be aware that at the meeting on, I apologize, on September the 16th of 2014, the meetings reflect that a motion was made to add an item to the agenda, and that it was regarding a hiring committee for the city administrator, and that there was a motion concerning the committee be selected by the mayor, and that then that committee would review the applicants, and then they would present one that they thought would be best suited to the directors, and the directors then of course would take it from there. Now, having said that, this is totally your decision. So with that, I will turn it over to the board for
Madam Mayor?
comments. Yes, David?
I make a motion to appoint a city administrator applicant screening committee consisting of Jonathan Barnett, Arthur Hulbert, and David Allen. Do I need to repeat that, Renee?
Yeah, a little slower.
I make a motion to appoint a city administrator applicant screening committee
Got it?
consisting of Jonathan Barnett, Arthur Hulbert, and David Allen.
We have a motion to appoint the screening committee of Jonathan Barnett, David Allen, and Arthur Hulbert. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Directors, comments, questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes. Read.
I'd like to state that it would probably be good if we did not have a director on the committee. I think it would also be good to take a look at a few others, definitely more than three. I have reached out to John Brown University. I have not received confirmation, but I know that the HR department there, especially with Kim Hadley and Amy Fisher, they have expertise in hiring people such as the city administrator, where basically you're wanting to hire someone who is a leader of leaders, and to find someone who is competent with dealing with the police department, fire department, human resources, streets, library, all the different areas. I think it'd be good to have a tremendous resource with that. And I know we have one recent with our city hospital with Chris Blair. We were able to bring him in, and I think he would provide a wealth of knowledge as well as experience on how he was treated and being welcomed into the city, what we did well, maybe ways that we can improve. And he not only takes care of things with the Siloam Springs Hospital, but he recently has been given the leadership of the Bentonville Hospital, I believe, as well. And I think having some people like Chris Blair, who is familiar with leaders who deal with leaders, and people like the JBU, and as well as I know when like Simmons Foods goes for a vice president, I think it'd be good to have some leaders like that, not to discredit or say that small business would need to be excluded. In fact, it may be good to have someone that represents that section of our community. But I'd like to see something like that with a minimum of 5 people.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
you may have said this in the beginning. Do you remember how many were on the search committee before?
There was a committee of 7.
7, okay. I would most definitely like to see more than 3, possibly up to 7 as well. And you said that the mayor was the one that selected that search committee previously.
The board asked the mayor to choose those committee members and then present those choices to the board for their approval.
Okay. I won't reiterate, or I will reiterate, but I won't say again what Director Carroll said. I agree with what he said with all the and for all the reasons that it would be helpful to have a committee of at least 5, if not 7, to screen any possible applicants for this position.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Carol?
I would concur with the previous 2 directors that gave their thoughts. I believe that we need a cross-section of our city. I don't believe we need a board member on there that did the termination. I don't think that looks great. But I would like to have the mayor make the appointment, and I would like to see 7. I think that's a good number for a cross-section of business leaders.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can we get kind of what the city admin applicant committee does? Kind of just a run through of what they will be doing.
And Christina, can you answer that for her? But what I remember, and you can tell me this too, what I remember is that the mayor chose that committee and then the board approved. They then took all of the applications that came in and they reviewed those. And then they made recommendations back to the board. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I do believe they actually interviewed some of those individuals before and kind of whittled down the application pool to just a few before the board interviewed.
Okay. And as far as your application system, when an applicant applies, does the system qualify and disqualify before it moves to the next? Does your system do that?
It does not.
What system do you use?
We use a manual application.
Wow. I guess I'm surprised this day and age that we're still using a manual application.
She's having a hard time understanding.
Oh.
Okay.
So basically, I mean, you can submit one electronically, but there is no review process other than the individuals looking through the actual applications to see who qualifies and who doesn't qualify.
And how do you score to make sure there's no because usually the system doesn't make a mistake.
We don't, excuse me. Basically, if they meet the minimum requirements, then we look closer at their application. So the current position, as it's written, the job description has like either a master's degree or 8 years of experience or basically combined education and experience. So if somebody doesn't meet that criteria, then they're not considered.
Okay. So for this, I would like to recommend that we have a sheet that we keep track of why someone wasn't qualified or why they were qualified. Not that I mean, that's just the best way to say, honestly. And then in the future, I would like for us to look at something.
We have been kicking that around, actually, between finance and HR.
Okay, because it prevents discrimination and it prevents a lot of issues that come along with the manual process, and it's been proven. And so,
Anything else, Lisa? No? Okay. Anyone else? Do I have an amendment to the motion? I'm a little unclear here. I mean, we've had comments that we think it should be more than 3. We think that there should be no directors. We think that, a lot of discussion, but do I have an amendment to the motion that is on the floor?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I make an amendment that we have our mayor choose a committee, a selection committee to consist of at least 7 members to choose the next city administrator. And it
Madam
should
Mayor.
not include a board member,
And that selection be brought to this board for approval.
but brought to the board for approval.
Madam Mayor, and can I get clarification, and maybe this was how it was done before, or how we want to do it this time? Do we want the committee to bring top 3, like Christina mentioned, whittling it down to a top 3, and then the board go from there, or a final selection? Do we want a final selection recommendation from this committee?
My understanding would be that, as before, once the board has decided upon the committee, then the directions will be given to that committee as to how they will go about their selection process. So the procedures will be put into place.
Okay, so we are not voting on the procedures now. We are voting on
And
the
we are-
mayor.
We are strictly looking at how you're going to appoint your screening committee.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
as I read the motion, it's an applicant screening committee. It's not an applicant selection committee. And it would screen the applicants to make sure you're not getting a manager of JCPenney thinking he can run a city. You're screening, nothing against JCPenney, but you're making sure that they are appropriate and that we have put them on the proper websites for applying, whether it be ICMA, AML, city website, wherever. And that there would be a top tier of 5, whatever, brought to the board for the board together to interview and choose. You're not going to have a committee pick one person, as it sounds like it was done before. Oh, it wasn't done that? No, Renee? How was it?
Do you remember how many applicants there were? You weren't here. There were, I want to say 5.
There were at least 5 that board members individually met with and then came together and made a decision.
That's the same way I see it today.
And that 5 was presented by that selection committee, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
The 5 were presented by the selection
Yes,
committee, is that
yes.
right? Okay,
They was presented to
Right.
the mayor, and then the mayor presented it to the board,
right.
and the board reviewed them.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So one amendment is selection and David's amendment is screening.
No.
No?
It's all about the screening. Well, I think what David was, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, but your point was that the appointment of the screening committee is just that. It's to screen the applicants that are being
Okay.
brought in or that we receive, and then those applicants would be then reviewed by the board just as they were before each one. Is that correct,
Yeah,
David?
the board's
Okay.
still gonna select. It was a screening committee.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sorry.
So right now, we have the first motion on the floor. We have an amendment that the mayor choose the committee of at least 7 members, and that those then be brought to the board, those members for that committee be brought back to this board for approval before we move forward. Do I have a second for that amendment?
I didn't, I said, and not to include a board member.
And not to include a board member. Okay, thank you.
I'll put a second to that, Madam Mayor.
So we have a motion and a second. Everyone understand what this amendment is?
A question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, David.
Does the mayor have the authority to appoint a committee regarding personnel?
My understanding is yes, they do. Is that correct, Jay? If they are directed by the board to do so.
That's correct, if delegated by the board.
Right. So if I have no other questions, then I will first ask for a vote on the amendment. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
No.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
No.
Allen,
No.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair.
No.
Amendment fails by a vote of 4 to 3. Is there any other discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Ken.
so we're going back to David's.
To David's
initial-
original motion, yes, sir?
My thought on this, and I mean, I want us all to work together and come to a equitable conclusion. I honestly feel like 7 is overkill. I mean, if David was agreeable, 5, I think is fine, just to do the work that we're asking to be done. I don't think we need 7. I mean, if we're gonna do that, why not 12? I mean, I think 5 people who could be agreed upon by this board would be smart enough, especially with the direction that is given, to do the job that we're asking them to do. So that's just my opinion. If David wants to discuss that some more and see what we could come to an agreement on, and if he doesn't, that's totally up to him. But I think 7 is too much. 5, to me, would be maybe more agreeable.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
My situation with the original motion was that the person that initiated the termination was making the motion and including a board member. If we can remove a board member from that committee, I don't have a problem. I don't care if it's 7, I don't care if it's 100, I don't care if it's 4. I do not want a board member making this selection.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mindy.
to add to that, I do think the committee should be at least 5, and I think it should be 5 that the mayor presents. We've had 3 names mentioned. If the mayor wants to accept recommendations from board members, that's fine, but I think it needs to be a clean slate going into asking you to make the recommendations for this committee. If it needs to be 5, 5, but I think it needs to be at least 5.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
I believe when you've got 2 board members that have degrees in HR and have been in charge of HR departments for companies with employees in the thousands, you should take advantage of that expertise. And that's why I put myself, if Director Rissler would sit on it as well, I think it would be good that you have 2 board members. But I don't understand hearing that JBU has an HR department that has worked on hiring city administrators. If their HR department worked on that, I think the point is that we are looking at a clean slate. That's exactly what the three names there are. They haven't been involved in the past in hiring someone.
Madam Mayor, I do not believe that we can include somebody looking for a committee for a city administrator to include the person that nominated the termination.
Does that have anything to do with it?
It just does not look good.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Reed.
I'm glad that we do have some people on our current board that do have HR experience. And I think it'll be called upon when we do have the final five, so to speak, that we can work with. But I think to get to that point, it would do us well, and to allow our community, who has, in my opinion, a wealth of knowledge and passion as well, to allow them to bring those five or however many to us for the final selection.
If I might, at this point, tell you, because it is listed here, and Renee has something she would like to, I think, information she'd like to give us.
I'm not an attorney, but I think if you have two board members,
Oh, I'm not making that a motion.
no, I'm just saying, if you did, it's going to be considered a public meeting. It's
I
going to have to
understand.
be open to the public and recorded.
I understand.
Yeah, just a minute. I just want to make you all aware of who was on the committee before, just so you have those names. They were Steve Beers, Kevin Harmon, Kathy Bolduck, Ron Harp, Brian Lamb, Carl Munger, and Dr. Scott Stennett. So they were the people that were on the last selection committee. So now you have those names. Lisa?
I agree. I don't think two board members, I don't care if one board member's on there, but I don't think two board members should be on there.
I was only bringing up two board members as reason with their background for their expertise. So a board member was on the previous committee.
No,
Steve
Steve
Beers.
wasn't.
he wasn't a board
board
member. at
Not a
that
board
time.
member?
No, sir. No, he was not. Looks like that at that time, Smiley, Burns, Brown, Nation, Jones, and Coleman and Kraft were the board members.
But Steve Beers had run for office and had one office, so he was coming on the board January 1 of
I don't-
2015.
I thought he was already off the board.
He was already off the board,
He was off the board in 2000.
17. That was the end of his term, right? Or 18.
No, I came on his term at the end of 2000, or at the beginning of 2019. So he had served for the 4 years previous. And I think maybe part of a term before, 16 to 20. Did he
So
not serve as?
So he did
Okay.
come on at the beginning of Mr. Patterson and had been elected to come on at the beginning.
Mm-mm. I don't think
15,
so.
16, 17, 18.
Madam Mayor,
I believe he only served partial term. We have this information somewhere.
Mr. Beers was elected in 14 to come on at the beginning of 15, and Mr. Patterson came on at the beginning of 15. So Beers had won his election at the end of 14 when there was a committee.
Madam Mayor,
And this was October the 13th of 2014 that these minutes are from. So
And his name is not on there.
his name is not a board member,
Board
no.
member, right.
He was on the committee.
What I'm saying.
Yes. Yes.
may we get clarification from the HR department?
Is Misty, do you have that information? I know that you were not here then.
HR wouldn't have that information since it's the board.
Yes. So, would you like for Renee to look that up for us, or?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That is a fact that Steve Beers was running unopposed and won his election. He was coming onto the board at the beginning of January 15, and if he was on the committee, he was already a supposed board member at the end of 2014. the official hire date of Mr. Patterson wasn't until January, and Steve
That is
Beers was
correct.
already inducted on January 1.
Brown, yeah. Smiley, Burns, Brown, Nation, Jones, Coleman, and Kraft were the board members, but I see what you're saying is that the election had already happened. Steve was getting ready to start his term January of 15. You don't think that's right?
May we have clarification, please, Madam Mayor?
Yes. That had not happened yet. Okay. Can you? Yes, we're going to call a recess to get that information. We will recess until the city clerk can find that and bring it back to us. Call back to order the special call meeting of the Board of Directors. Renee, can you share that information with us, please?
It was a special election. I believe it was Director Brown who resigned. Steve Beers was the only candidate, and they certified him on August 14th, 2015. He was sworn into office on August 18th, 2015.
So at the time, he had not run for office or had not been elected to office. Okay, thank you.
I do remember that.
Okay, so, there again, we have had some discussions. Do I have another amendment to this motion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just throwing out some more possibilities for names. Kevin Williams comes to every single board meeting. He's knowledgeable. James McGurk does also. Randy Torres, I don't know if he would be interested, but he certainly is well known in the community and would be knowledgeable about hiring. And I agree with Director Wiles that I think 5 people would be plenty.
Was the first name you said, Betsy?
Kevin Williams, Randy Torres, and James McGurk, is that correct?
Yes. Or Jan Simmons
Jan
McGurk.
Simmons. Okay. And I will tell you that I spoke to, I was at another meeting and Mark Simmons was there, and he wanted me to make sure that we knew that if we needed someone, if we had a selection committee, we needed someone from their HR department, that he would be glad to see that we had someone to help us with that process. So I'm just telling you that that offer was made.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to take Mr. Simmons up on that offer and have somebody from Simmons HR. I don't think there's 2 names there that are husband and wife, so that would not be good.
Madam Mayor, my thought was just one or the other, not 2. I was just putting more names out there to make it up to 5.
I think it would be wise if the board members didn't have personal ties to somebody that we're nominating. I'm not saying we do, I'm just saying it would be better.
Like someone from an HR, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, we have several companies in town that do have large HR departments. I think we have plenty of resources in this town.
Madam Mayor, I think Patty Island would be a good name. Patty Island.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes. Lisa?
I agree with Director Smiley. Mark Simmons' offer, I think, is a good offer. And I recommend Randy Torres. He ran the HR department for
Bayspring.
Dayspring, yeah.
And he is very involved in our community. And
Yeah,
knows
very
a lot,
involved and knows
yes.
a lot of people.
And Madam Mayor, I would recommend that somebody from the HR department of JBU.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I just clarify here? Are we still on the motion? Is this a time for us to be giving you recommendations, or do we need to get back to the motion?
Okay. We are still on that motion, and we are still having discussion. What I'm asking for now is, during this discussion, if there is an amendment, you all have talked about adding more members than just the 3. If you all have an amendment to the motion to name others that you want, or who you want on that committee, if you want to make an amendment to ask the mayor to talk to these people and then bring that committee back to you for approval, that's what I'm needing, an amendment, if that's what you all want. If there is no amendment, then we will vote on the motion as presented.
Madam Mayor, my amendment, even though I've given some names, would be that you would be included in making the nomination for this committee.
I think you just made an amendment and it failed.
That is true. We did have a vote on your amendment to that the mayor choose the committee. That is correct,
Madam
Carol.
Mayor,
So,
I would like to
Yes.
make an amendment
yes,
then.
yes, ma'am.
I guess I would like to make an amendment that we ask Mark Simmons, I guess, and then Randy Torres, and then have a backup. But I don't know who the backup is. I mean, I don't want to,
Okay.
but
Are you saying added to the 3 original?
yes.
So your list would be Jonathan Barnett, David Allen, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and someone from the HR with Mark Simmons. We'll talk to Mark and get him to recommend someone for that position. Is that correct? For that third or
Since he
fifth
offered.
person? Yes, because he has offered to do that. Is that what
Even
I'm
though it'd be
hearing?
on working time and stuff like that. Because they're not selecting who
No,
we pick. They're
They-
just making sure the application process.
they are reviewing the applications, and once they've reviewed those applications, they will bring a recommendation to you from those. And if I understand correctly, there was like perhaps the top 5 that was brought to the board the last time.
I would say minimum 5.
And so,
I do believe the board members had the opportunity to look at the applications. They were made available.
All of them.
once,
I don't remember the number. I just know that we all had the opportunity to look at them, but we were not all part of the process.
I will second Lisa's amendment.
Madam Mayor,
yes,
just real quick, if I could, and if this is out of line, just let me know. I'm fine with the names that have been given. I was just gonna ask, would it be, and I don't know, I don't want to infringe on Director Risler's amendment, but would it be prudent possibly to go with the 5 that were named and maybe pick 1 or 2 alternates in case, say, one of the people asked said no? Would that, and maybe I'm going about this the back way, that, so you wouldn't have to come back and say, oh, well, one of them wouldn't do it. You could have 2 alternates and move down that list as well from the names that we have just given you. Did that make sense? I hope.
that is totally up to this board.
Madam Mayor, would you,
Fact
Okay,
The
Carol?
fact that Mark already offered to
Yes,
you,
yes, he has already offered and said he would make sure that that person was available for us.
and I think Randy Torres would say yes as well.
I would like to
Sure.
know the names. I've kind of lost track.
Okay.
What names do we have?
Okay, for the amended motion, Jonathan Barnett, David Allen, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and someone from the Simmons HR offices.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if the board ultimately makes the decision, and if the board is able to see the applications, which I think the board could decide if we wanted to see the applications, sounds like we have a lot of leeway in this whole process. So I'm not sure why we would need a board member to sit on this screening process. I need more clarification as to why we need a board member. Maybe we did it with Steve Beards. I don't know what we finally decided there. We didn't. Okay. I don't understand the reasoning to have any of us board members on this selection screening process.
Madam Mayor.
Help me understand that.
And you do not have to have a board member on
That's,
your
that's,
selection.
that's the motion, the way it's been presented.
But yes, as it stands, that is the motion. Yes, there is a board member on that. Yes.
I would like to know the reason too.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa.
I know that we've had board members serve on all kinds of committees. Like when we were picking the broadband, one of us sat on the committee, and they do ask a lot of questions, and I was glad I was able to serve on it because I was able to answer the questions from a director perspective. And we do see that, that's pretty common that we do that. We have a lot of board members sit on different committees.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just think it's highly unusual to have a board member that terminated the city administrator to be on the selection committee.
Point of order, I did not terminate the administrator, and to insinuate that this was something I did alone is,
You made the motion.
that doesn't mean I did it, ma'am. I did not vote him on my own and superpowers snapped him off. That's just ridiculous to say that.
Madam Mayor,
Okay, yes.
there are a lot of questions surrounding the recent decision to terminate the contractor. I think this would be a good time for any of the board members, whether they were for or against the termination of the contract, to step aside and let our citizens come in and decide who the board eventually needs to appoint as the new city administrator based on their selection from applications they receive.
So, do you have an amendment?
Can I have an amendment after a motion has been
Yes.
seconded?
Yes, you may.
Okay,
An amendment to the amendment?
Yes.
You have
Okay.
two.
then,
Have two, but that's all
okay.
at one time. So,
Where are we now?
so the last motion to amend was to change the selection committee to include Jonathan Barnett, David Allen, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and we'll say Mark Simmons.
Okay, then I will amend that to, if the board wants to go with the actual names that have been presented other than a board member, and it's not David Allen or not anyone else, it's no board member, however you want to put that.
Okay, so what your amendment is that you want to appoint the names that have been presented for the selection committee minus a board member, right? So that would mean that you would have 4 members.
If today we're going to go ahead and put names down, yes, I
Okay,
would prefer that we have some time to think about what names and let you come up with that, but if we're going to appoint names, then yes, those names, but no board member.
so you amend to accept the list with no board members. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the list to be Jonathan Barnett, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and Mark Simmons. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
When you say Mark Simmons, you're meaning
Yes,
his representative?
his representative, yes, that is correct.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa?
I get it both ways, but one person's not, hopefully, one person's not going to be making the decision on the screening. I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill. Hopefully these other people, which by what I know about him, Arthur is very active in our community. Jonathan Barnett was our representative at the state level. And then Randy, he knows everybody in town. Mark Simmons is the same way. I just, having David or Smiley or Hunt or anybody else on the board, on that committee, I don't think that one person is going to make a difference. I just think that they will be able to answer questions.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
and I I can go either way. I can see both sides as far as a board member, but I think Lisa makes a good point, just to be able to answer questions, things like that. One person isn't going to have that much influence or power. It's just a screening committee.
So I will make this, Renee makes a very good point, that would only leave 4 members. We really need to have 5. Of course, this is not a voting committee, so it's not,
No,
yeah,
my preference
yeah.
is that the mayor bring us the names of 5 people, and she's been given the names of some that she can take into consideration. But of those 5 people, my preference is that there not be a board member on there. There are too many questions surrounding this issue right now. And I think for us to be able to remove ourselves and allow the citizens to come up with who they want us to consider for the next city administrator, ultimately it is going to be our decision. We have an acting city administrator right now. We have numerous other people on staff that can help answer those questions. If there are questions that they want a board member to, the screening, the board can be involved most likely if there are questions through the mayor. I just don't think the citizens, I don't think the board members need to be part of this screening process, any of us.
Madam Mayor, I would like to see you make the appointments and bring the names forward and leave us out.
Okay, so we did have an amendment that failed, that was for the mayor to choose the committee, and it be 7 members. So that motion did fail. So Mindy, your amendment as it stands now is that there would be no board members, and that the other names listed.
I'd really like to go back to the scratch. You just tell us. That's what I really want, but. And that's not to, I mean, you've been given names. You can take those names into consideration outside of this board meeting, but I don't think we have to decide in whatever motion we make what people we're going to ask.
All right.
The comments that are being made have nothing to do with the amendment that's on the floor.
So, back to that amendment. And we are at the point where we need to address this amendment, which says those that are listed without the board member.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
in relation to this amendment, it's obviously against me. I only have wished someone on the board who has HR experience. Lisa, if you would do this job instead of me being on the board, I will readily let you do it because you have more recent HR experience. If you want to sit on the committee, then
Well, that's, right now, that is not a part of this
I
amendment. So
understand that.
we
understand
need to address this amendment as it stands. So, what I have a motion and a second for is that the committee consists of the names that have been presented with no board member.
which can you name those for?
Yes, sir. Jonathan Barnett, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a representative for Mark Simmons.
I don't think that's Mindy's motion.
That's not?
Let me
That's what she
tell you
said.
what
I
my
said
motion
that,
is.
I said that initially. And so I don't, my preference is that the amendment is that you,
That's
Make
not
the
what your
decision.
amendment was.
so if I cannot do anything else, then it has to be that we go with the board member, with the people that have been presented without a board member. And it's not about any one particular board member. I'm recommending no board members.
Your
So I
amendment-
have a motion and a
Your-
second. Second?
Her amendment is the 4 you named, right?
That's correct.
That's what I
With-
initially
with-
said, and my understanding is we can't have an amendment more
That's
than
right.
twice, right?
That's right. This amendment has to be voted on first. And then we can address the other amendment, and then if there we'll get back to the original motion unless there is another amendment. But we can only have 2 amendments on the floor at one time. So we have a motion and a second for the amendment to make the committee the names of Jonathan Barnett, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a representative for Mark Simmons. Roll call.
Wiles,
No.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
No.
Allen,
No.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
No.
Miley.
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Ken?
I'm just going back. We've already decided, or I felt like we said 5 would be a good number. Because there was opposition to 3. I like the idea of 5. I don't want to jump too far ahead. Lisa would consider it. I would make an amendment with the names given minus David and including Lisa in that, only if she would feel comfortable in that position.
But adding who as the 5th one, because the original only has 3.
Well, yes, with Randy Torres, the Simmons HR person,
Okay.
Jonathan, Arthur, and Lisa, if she would be willing to do it.
So your amendment is to
So is that your
replace,
amendment?
That is my amendment.
to
Yes.
replace me with Lisa Riss.
Yes.
And do I have a second to that amendment?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the committee to be Jonathan Barnett, Lisa Rissler, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a Simmons representative.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I was a vice president of human resources for an engineering firm. Oh, sorry. This is hard. I don't care what people think. This is harder on either side. I don't care what you believe, what you don't believe, this is hard. Can we take a recess and give me some time to, I understand Mindy's concern and Director Smiley's concern that David made the motion.
Madam Mayor, do
And
we need a motion
That's
for recess?
fair.
We have a motion and we
Oh,
have
for a
a
recess.
second. Not unless she's asking for a recess.
Yeah, I want to think about, this is hard. I want to talk to my husband, actually, to be honest.
So are you asking for a 5-minute recess?
If you don't mind.
Then we will have a 5-minute recess. Call back to order this special call meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors. So at this time, we are looking at an amendment. We have a motion and a second that the 5 names will be Jonathan Barnett, Lisa Rissler, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a Simmons HR representative. Any more discussion on that particular motion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
may I ask who called this meeting today?
The mayor has to call this meeting.
So you called this meeting?
The mayor
Okay.
has to call a special call meeting.
We all like to hear from citizens. We all want citizen input. This was a really hard time for citizens to get here. It was hard for me. I had to change things around. I was not really prepared for this discussion today. I would like to move that we table this discussion
And
to a time, either next Tuesday night, or another time in the evening when citizens have a little bit more time to be informed.
Okay, so we have 2 amendments on the floor right now. Is that correct, Jay? If I haven't lost count, I believe that's right.
That's correct.
Okay, so should we have a motion to call before we address one of these amendments at least?
Yes, I mean,
Yes,
a
okay.
motion to table can be made any time. I mean,
Okay.
you couldn't have another amendment, but yes,
Right. Okay,
motion to table would be
Okay.
in order.
all right. Okay. So,
I would second that.
Madam Mayor, can the citizens talk, and
no,
speak
not
at
at
it
a special
anyway?
call meeting.
So
no.
what would be the purpose, I guess I'm asking?
If
because
we have
they-
this discussion at our next regularly scheduled meeting, I believe, I would think, it would not be a specially called meeting. We could have citizen input. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, is the question whether you could have public discussion?
Could- if
you
we-
continue this to the next,
If we had
Regularly
this
meeting.
discussion, if we had this discussion, this agenda item on a regularly scheduled meeting's agenda, would the public be able to discuss?
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So your motion is to table until our regular meeting on the 21st, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, I
thought
think Reed already did.
Reed already second, okay. So we have a motion and a second to table this discussion until our regular meeting on March the 21st.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David? Mm-hmm.
I think there's been so much discussion of how unplanned everything was for having a follow-up, no plan of succession, all this stuff, all these accusations, even by board members on Facebook, that 1 week is 1 week, and we need to have this operating now. Staff needs to be given direction on the job posting. And we have the public here. The public was notified. Those that wouldn't show up are here. And it seems like the motion to table is a last-ditch effort to put this off, and we really need to get this done.
Madam,
Yes.
Mayor.
Not done.
Oh,
I
I'm
haven't
sorry,
given
David's
up the
not done.
floor. I don't see the need to table when we have 2 amendments and a motion on the floor. And this group, whoever it is, needs to get to work and active. I'm done.
Thank you, David. Carol?
Madam Mayor, I would like to table this. I think this was, it was a quick meeting. I think that if we have it at our board meeting, citizens can speak. There are many citizens that would like to have some input into what has been going on in the last week. And I think we are entitled to hear them. Now, I suppose that they would probably come anyway, but I think to make this decision, we need to hear from our citizens. It's affecting them, good or bad. They all have different opinions. I don't know which is right or which is wrong, but I think that we should table this and have it during our regularly scheduled Tuesday meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David?
Contrary to the atmosphere, whatever you want to call it, of the sky is falling, the city is still operating just fine. We have great department heads that are in operation running their departments just fine. The city is going to be okay. The city of Siloam Springs is going to be okay. The citizens of Siloam Springs are going to be okay. And putting a call out for a selection committee to start reviewing applications is not something to be put off, and it is not by 1 week going to be the end of the world that this gets done today.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Again,
as Director Allen said, the city is in good hands right now. The city's running. The directors are doing their job. We can wait a week.
I agree.
So we have a motion to table to our next regular meeting of the 21st of March. I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Fessler,
No.
No. Allen,
No.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
No.
Wiley,
Yes.
Wiles.
No.
Motion fails. We will move on back to our amendment for the 5 names as presented. We have a motion and a second for Jonathan Barnett, Lisa Rissler, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a Simmons representative. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
No.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
No.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt.
No.
Amendment is approved. So now we will move back to the original motion. Jay, is that correct?
As amended.
Yes, that is
As
correct.
amended,
As
is that
amended.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, we have on the floor a motion and a second to approve this committee as amended, which would be Jonathan Barnett, Lisa Rissler, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a Simmons representative. Roll call.
You guys are absolutely running amok this city.
Point of order. Point of order. There is no public comment. Point of order.
It is so clear what you're doing.
Allen,
All 4 of you. It's very clear what you guys are doing.
Allen,
We got interrupted. May I ask again what?
Yes, the motion before you, with a motion and a second, is as amended to approve the selection committee, the screening committee, with the following names: Jonathan Barnett, Lisa Rissler, Arthur Hulbert, Randy Torres, and a representative from Simmons.
I do have a question before we vote.
Yes.
Can anybody on the selection committee nominate themselves?
Yeah, there is nothing that says they cannot. Yes, Lisa.
I just want to say, I just want this over with. This is stressful, whether people think it is or not. I just want our city moving forward. Whether you believe it or not, I want our city moving forward. People have different opinions about what's going on. And really, the truth, only the people that are sitting up here know the truth of everything. And so I'm ready for us to move forward and to work together.
Any other comments? If not, we will have a roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
No.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
No.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
No.
Rissler,
Yes.
Motion is approved. The screening committee has been set. I believe that there are policies in place, if I'm correct. Let's see, I'm trying to see here where it says. Right here, it said a motion was made to allow the mayor and HR prepare a set of guidelines. Of course, in this particular case, the mayor is not a part of that committee. So I would think that it would be up to HR and I suppose the screening committee
And the city administrator.
to set, and the city administrator, or perhaps HR and the city administrator to set those guidelines? Is that acceptable to you?
That's acceptable.
Okay. And Jay, is that,
Yeah, that is acceptable. I would like clarification on one thing.
yes, sir.
The previous committee, they just did rankings and made recommendations.
That is correct.
And
That's what I understand.
is that the intention for this committee, or will they be allowed to eliminate candidates altogether?
My understanding is it is a screening committee that has been appointed, which would mean that they would review those applications, and I suppose if there was one that was not qualified, that they would take that out. But there again, you know, I would say that's part of the guidelines that they are going to set.
Okay, so that will be a guideline to be set.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
That's fine. I
Okay.
just need to know.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, I'd like to make, I would like to go into executive session to talk about Christina's pay. We asked her to fulfill a position, but we haven't offered her money to fulfill that position.
Can we call an executive session at a special call meeting?
The special call meeting has to be limited only to the purpose for which it was called.
That's what I thought. So, that will have to be something that we will address at our regular meeting on the 21st.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Lisa, would you like executive session added to the agenda
Yes, please.
for the 21st?
Yes, please.
All right, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.